She was described as just a rough old lady living off of grid. She's dirty. She hung out with pigs all day. She didn't even have a bathroom on this property, but people would say that if you took 5 seconds to talk to her, she was the sweetest, nicest old lady. She got a whole bunch of pigs, chickens, and at this point she's just an old farm woman. And the property that she purchased was completely underdeveloped, so it was basically nothing but trees and bush and just wooded area, which was perfect for Susan because she wanted to have her own little world back there. Now in 2013, Monica ran an ad in Craigslist looking for a handyman to help her build a house. A guy named Robert Haney came to her and said that he wanted the job. They seemed to kind of hit it off as much as they needed to, and she told him, great, you're hired for the position. He was doing whatever she needed. In exchange for half of his pay was the fact that he got to live there on the property, and then the other half she gave him in just cash. Now when things started to take a very strange turn was when Robert just disappeared and went missing. He disappeared around September of 2013, and his kids really started to get concerned with him when they didn't hear from him after Christmas. So they didn't hear from him at Halloween time. They didn't hear from him at all at Thanksgiving. Then Christmas comes around. This is when they started to really kind of panic. New Year's came around and they were just basically freaking out. So all of his kids who were adults at this time, they got together and they drove to the property where their dad had been staying. When they got there, they saw his little trailer, but they also saw Susan. So they went up to Susan first and said, hey, have you seen my dad? We haven't heard from him. We're very concerned. And she said, I haven't seen him in months. I actually don't know where he is. His dog is running around here. Like, can you take his property? Like, get it off of my property. If he's not going to be here helping, he needs to get his stuff and you guys can take it. His kids then went to go into his RV to see if they could see anything that would help them figure out where their dad was. And one of his kids would later testify that when they walked into the RV, the hairs on their neck stood up. He saw everything that his dad would use, or any human person that would go anywhere would take with them. His wallet, his information, his dad's tools. His kids would later say that their dad, Robert, didn't go anywhere without his tools. I mean, that was his livelihood. His kids were completely freaked out. They immediately left and went to file a police report. Now, when they filed this police report, the cops at first, they were like, this is a grown man. He's a wanderer. We'll look into it. Okay, we'll look into it. When they started to look into asking people, questioning people, asking Susan, she told them the same story. She hadn't seen him in months. She has no idea where he is. She had a great reputation in the town. They had no reason to not believe her. They couldn't find anything on him. And the fact that Robert used cash for everything, he didn't have a debit card or a credit card. Everything was cash. They just could not trace him. They soon found out that Robert actually had a food stamp card. So they ran a check on it and they saw that in December, his food stamp card was actually used at a local Walmart there in their town. They went to the Walmart, they pulled the security footage, and when they pulled the security footage of the person using his card, they saw that it was Susan. Immediately, the investigators were like, okay, why is she using his card? That is very fishy. The investigators get back and they get a warrant so they can search her property. When all the investigators go to search Susan's property and to speak to her, and they were going to arrest her on fraud for using his food stamp card, the investigators said when they got to Susan's property, they were taken back by the smell of decay and animal feces. The investigators would later say that the pigs and chickens were just everywhere. And it was such an eerie feeling because it was so quiet. You've got all these farm animals walking around, and then the smell of decay is everywhere. There's flies everywhere, and it was just eerie to them. After they questioned Susan again, and she said that she hadn't seen Robert in 4 months, they let her know that they had a warrant and that they were going to search the property. Susan was like, okay, go ahead, search the property. I've told you what I've told you. He's not here. And so they're walking around, like there's digging, the ground is disrupted, and one of the investigators sees something over on the ground, and he is shocked. It was a human bone, and it was just laying out there in the open. I mean, it had nothing was covering it. It was literally just laying there. Now, while the investigators saw this, Susan was still up at the front of the property talking to other investigators. And they called, investigators called other ones over. They saw it. They were taking pictures of it. They went over to Susan and they did not tell her immediately what they saw. They asked her if she would go down to the station for questioning, and Susan agreed. Sure, fine. I'll go down there for questioning. When they asked Susan again on record as an interrogation or an interview if she knew where Robert was, she again said, no, I have not seen him since September. He just disappeared. When they told Susan that they found the leg, that is when she changed her story. And this is when she gave a very, very strange story that the investigators would say that they would never forget and that they had nightmares about. Susan said that one day she heard her pigs making all this noise and she went over to the pig pen. She took a closer look. She saw Robert laying there and that her pigs were eating him. She said that she was actually pretty sure that her pigs were eating him alive. The investigators wanted to know, how do you know he was alive? She said, well, he was moaning and moving. She said that she decided that she was going to do for Robert what she does for her animals. She went back to her little area where she has her stuff. She grabbed her gun. She went back to where the pigs were and Robert was, and she shot him in the head in order to take him out of his misery. She said she didn't know what to do then, so she just left him there. She said she left him there for about 3 days and let the pigs finish having their fill with him. When the investigators asked her why she didn't just call the police, why didn't she tell them? She said she did not want her pigs to be put down. So the investigators let her know that they were about to search that whole property up and down. They were going to tear it up. They were going to dig everything. Is there anything else Susan needed to tell them that they were going to find? She said, yes. She said, at this part of the pond where I was digging, you're going to find the remains of a man named Stephen Delacino. The investigators are like, what happened to Stephen Delacino? I mean, who is this person? Susan started telling them that in 2012, she put an ad on Craigslist for the same exact thing. She needed a handyman, and she said his case was a little bit different. She said that Stephen Delacino got one night and tried to attack her. When he tried to attack her, she shot him and he fell into the pig pen and the pigs ate him. Same exact thing. They just started ripping him apart and she left him there for a few days. And when they were done eating him, she scooped up his remains and she buried it. The investigators would also ask Susan, is that it? Is that the only 2 people that have died on your property or that you've killed or anything like that? And Susan said, well, if I told you about the other 17 bodies, I'll never get out of prison. She was found guilty. She got life sentences for both, but the life sentences are a minimum of 25 years. And then I think you can go up for parole there in Oregon in 2015 when she went to trial for this. And so she got 50 years minimum. She was 66 years old when she went to trial in 2015. So she will never get out of prison. I mean, unless she lives to be 106 and then gets out on parole, it's going to be a rough ride for girlfriend, but that's where she's at.